Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new. Thank you for taking time out of your day to check the video out. We have more PlayStation news, rumors, and leaks to go over and cover today. And we're starting here with Sony confirming that they will once again not be attending Gamescom. This is being reported by Push Square. They say since the platform holder hasn't been on the show floor since 2019, this comes as little surprise. However, the decision to skip the event once again was confirmed in a statement. Sony Interactive Entertainment currently has no plans to exhibit at Gamescom 2025. However, we look forward to exciting content and releases coming later this year. Sony is confirmed to be exhibiting at Tokyo Game Show in September. This means any first-party PS5 titles or games backed by Sony will not be playable on the show floor, but it does not rule out announcements being made at the Gamescom opening night live showcase. Third-party efforts will still announce PS5 versions and feature PlayStation logos in their trailers. It's worth watching regardless of whether Sony is there or not. So there you go, just another year where Sony is not going to be attending Gamescom. Nothing new here, no surprise, but yeah, just figured I would let you guys know. It seems like they're putting all of their focus on Tokyo Game Show. Moving on from that, we're talking about how some OG PS5 owners are unhappy with Sony seemingly winding down support, not necessarily when it comes to updates, of course, but it says here that owners of the original launch PS5 consoles have expressed disappointment over lack of support when it comes to major new releases. Yesterday, Sony unveiled nifty new accessories, including console covers for Ghost of Yotei, and as PS5 Pro players celebrated getting their first official console covers, OG PS5 owners were left disappointed. Social media sites and gaming forums are littered with complaints from players who felt that Sony should not be abandoning the original consoles, especially for a highly anticipated new release. "I can't use those covers, I have the original," one player complained on Reddit. "I hate how they don't do cover plates for the original PS5, added another. One player pointed out that Sony has fragmented the PS5 console base quite a bit and is struggling to support all three. There's the launch PS5, the PS5 Slim, and now the PS5 Pro. It took Sony 8 months to release covers for the Pro, and they happen to be limited edition, so it's not exactly the support Pro owners were looking for." So I wanted to take a moment to highlight this because, yeah, it is very cool to see that Sony is doing limited edition console covers for the PS5 Slim and the PS5 Pro for Ghost of Yotei, but I couldn't help but notice that they seem to just be completely skipping the original PS5. And honestly, I do think this sucks. I think treating original PS5 owners, people who were there within the first couple years of the PS5, as kind of second class when it comes to stuff like this is just a really bad look and frankly just disappointing to see. I don't want to make a bigger deal out of it than needs to be made, like it's the worst thing Sony could have done. It's certainly not, but still, I'm somebody who was there at the launch of the PS5 and I did upgrade to the PS5 Pro, but if I didn't want to upgrade to the PS5 Pro and I was interested in what Sony's offering here, yeah, I would feel pretty annoyed that I'm just disqualified, right? Unless I bought another PS5, the Slim version, or I upgraded to the Pro, that's the only way I could access these console covers. So I understand players' frustrations, and yeah, it would be nice if Sony could maybe actually do something like this for original PS5 owners. Moving on from that, we have a small update regarding Bend Studio, and it seems that they actually had multiple projects that were canceled, which is not the most shocking thing because, as we know, big development studios are usually working on more than one project at any given time. This is being reported by Gaming Bolt, and they say spare thought for Siphon Filter and Days Gone developer Bend Studio after the former launched to positive but not overwhelmingly great critical reactions. It would work on an open-world live service multiplayer title that was canceled earlier this year. However, that may not be the only project that was shelved. As discovered by Timur222, the LinkedIn profile of game designer Jacob Faith indicates multiple canceled/unannounced projects. He was responsible for creating open-world events and missions, prototyping events, puzzles, and systems, collaborating with animators for in-game cinematics, and much more. Given that he's been working at the studio since 2019, which is when Days Gone launched, you have to wonder how many projects have been left by the wayside. While 30% of Bend Studio staff was laid off, the unannounced part gives some hope that it's working on something new. So yeah, as we know, the situation with Bend Studio is very unfortunate. They decided to make a live service multiplayer game that ended up getting canceled midway through development, but now we're finding out that apparently there may have been another project that they were working on. It's worth noting that they could have been working on another game with another studio potentially. It might not have been like a second full-blown title that ended up getting canceled. I mean, they were working on a live service game, so they could have been collaborating with other PlayStation Studio teams that were working on live service games as well. But either way, I wanted to give you this small update. It's, it's one of these things where I think we're all still rooting for Bend Studio. We know they're working on a new game now, or they're in the early process of figuring out what their next game is going to be. And all I can really hope is that they're smart enough to know you got to go back to making single player titles. I think that's their best shot of success, certainly. But moving on from that, we have confirmation that Phantom Blade Zero will be attending Gamescom 2025. The official post from the Phantom Blade Zero X account reads, "We're coming to Gamescom 2025, August 20th through 24th in Cologne, Germany. Get hands-on with the Phantom Blade Zero demo. It's our biggest demo yet, a full 1-hour playable experience featuring all new boss battles, striking level design, immersive storytelling, and visceral blade-to-blade combat." So they're talking about how they have 60 plus demo stations. I'm assuming we're going to be getting a new look at Phantom Blade Zero at Gamescom. And what's interesting, we mentioned earlier how Sony will not be attending Gamescom, but it says here the equipment is provided by PlayStation, which is very interesting to me because it's like you kind of see how Sony still is going to have a presence at Gamescom, where, yeah, they're not going to be like showing up with Ghost of Yotei, but Phantom Blade Zero, as far as I'm aware, is going to be a console exclusive. Not that Sony struck a deal or anything, but it's just one of these situations again where the developer just decided that the only console they really want to focus on right now is the PS5. And this is a game that I know a lot of people are looking forward to, and they're expecting to be getting a release date. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a new release date trailer, and it'll be interesting to see how people respond to this hour-long playable demo. We've heard nothing but good things about Phantom Blade Zero so far. But moving on to the final topic of the video, we have an interesting write-up on Push Square where they say Helldivers 2 Xbox announcement prompts avalanche of Spider Man port begging. If you have an active interest in PS5 and haven't abandoned X or Twitter yet, then you'll no doubt have found yourself inundated with an avalanche of Marvel Spider-Man port begging this week. In the aftermath of Helldivers 2's announcement for the Xbox Series X and S, the social media platform is absolutely awash with posts about Insomniac Games' superhero outing getting ported to Microsoft's machine. It's unclear exactly where the speculation started, although an innocuous post from Insomniac appears to have sparked the surge. And it says here in the post, the studio just put an image of Peter Parker with a comment that says, "Hey, how are you?" But this has prompted an absolute snowball of comments from Xbox fans, with many either asking for a report of the game or assuming the post is teasing some kind of incoming announcement. Somebody says it looks good wrapped in green with a mock-up of the game, a physical version, ironically enough, of the game in an Xbox case. And somebody else says, so Spider-Man 2018 is coming to Xbox, question mark. The article continues by saying it's important to underline that this isn't just one or two responses. We've seen dozens, perhaps even hundreds of similar posts these past few days. Many of them have likes and shares totaling in the thousands. So, is Marvel Spider-Man coming to Xbox? Well, our guess would be no, but we also would have said the same thing about Helldivers 2 a few weeks ago. We suppose the difference is that Arrowhead's co-op shooter is a live service game where 50% of its revenue comes from microtransactions. So the economics just aren't the same for a one-and-done single-player campaign like Marvel Spider-Man. But the series has already been ported to PC, and the first game in the franchise is now almost 7 years old. For what it's worth, PlayStation Studios boss Herman Hulst said very recently that Sony needs to, quote, be really thoughtful about bringing our franchises off console to reach new audiences, end quote. These comments predated the Helldivers 2 announcement, however. If we had to make a bet either way, we'd say there's little chance of tentpole first-party games like Marvel Spider-Man coming to Xbox, but Sony has ripped off the Band-Aid now. This kind of speculation is only going to continue, at least in the short term. Now, I just wanted to cover this because, yes, Sony did open the door for this. This is not surprising to see. it's not like it's weird to see people, port begging for Spider Man on Xbox. They see something like Helldivers 2, which we thought for sure wasn't going to happen. So next up, it's bring the single player game. Spider Man is a licensed game, it's a massive property. And it is true that Herman Hulst did say that, they're going to have to think really carefully, right, about bringing their franchises off console to new audiences. We don't know how far this is going to extend. I think right now a lot of people are assuming, and I think it's a somewhat safe assumption, that it's just going to be live service games, right? But I don't know that I feel 100% confident in saying that, yeah, this just definitely won't happen. But I do think, and this is the most important thing, that people are getting a little bit ahead of themselves. I think Sony wants to see how Helldivers 2 does first, right? I think people are kind of forgetting that games don't really sell on Xbox. At least rarely do games release that sell well on that platform. It got to a point where Microsoft had to start porting their own games to another storefront, that being the PlayStation storefront, in order to sell full price games, right? And so I'm just, I'm not trying to throw shade. I'm just putting this out here that it's like, I think Sony's going to probably sit back, wait and see how Helldivers 2 does before they make any type of decision. Like, I don't think Insomniac posting, hey, how are you? Hashtag Spider Man PS5 is an indication that they're gearing up to announce a Spider Man Xbox port. But now that I've said that, it'll probably get announced next week, right? But yeah, I just wanted to kind of cover this because it's the big talk that everybody's kind of, speculating right now. Is Sony going to be taking it further? I guess we'll have to wait and find out. But that's going to do it for the video, guys. If you enjoyed it, be sure to leave it a like, subscribe if you're new, hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share the video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.